Olá a todos, welcome to another YouTube video. Today we're going to talk about documentation in Julia using Documenter.jl. I'm going to start from scratch with Documenter. Normally you won't do this, you have something set up already from your template, but I just deleted a docs folder and I'm going to show you the minimum that you need, and from there you do whatever you want. And some features, but also most importantly how to put this thing online, which is sometimes not so obvious. So follow along or just sit back and relax. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Let's get to it. So I'm showing you here a repo that I have called Playground with Git that I use to teach Git and with a bit of Julia inclined lessons, let's say. It is a very basic thing, so it's essentially just a function. Let's start from scratch. So you have normally a folder called src, so the source folder for your package, a bunch of other stuff. You're gonna create another folder called docs, and inside that folder you need a file called make.jl. You also need another folder called source again, and then you're gonna put all your documentation inside source. You will also need to activate the docs. So from here you can start repo, cd into docs, package mode, activate here, and then add Documenter. So you need to add the Documenter package, and you also need the Playground with Git package, but you won't add the Playground with Git package. You will dev dot. So I am inside the docs folder. Dot in terminal or Linux, Unix nomenclature means one folder above. So when I say this, I'm essentially saying, I'm essentially saying there's a package one structure above. In this case, Playground with Git. So it works for any package that you have. Next, you need to do something related to this package. So the most basic thing that we can do is say using Documenter, and we also need the Playground with Git, and we're going to make the docs. I believe you need a site name. Don't worry, I'm copying this from somewhere. I'm not a genius. Make docs, I think this might be enough. You include make. Well, I lied, you actually also need a file inside source, otherwise there is nothing to build. I'll just say hi. Build again. It'll be faster now. First time it will take a while, but it's faster second time. And now, so you need to open this build thing. So there is a docs build now. This docs build has all the, this is a website essentially, and has all the pages have a corresponding HTML. So you have to find this index.h because we called it index.md. You should call it index, the first one, for page building reasons. Don't worry about it. So click here, find the path, go to your browser, paste, and here is the result. So Playground with Git, this is just index.html. Here, hi. That's it. That's the only thing that we have. This is enough to build some documentation. Of course, not what we want. We want something a bit better. So let's improve on this. So what you normally have here, if you're using some kind of template, and you probably should, is you're gonna have these already filled with some interesting files, and make in particular will be kind of full with a lot of information. And we're going to do exactly the same. We're gonna copy paste from somewhere. I'm using a template here. This is a copier template, which is a package that I'm working on right now. It should be pretty decent, I hope, by Julia 2024. And I'm gonna copy this from the template itself, paste here, and fix it. So here I don't need this again, but everything else we're going to add. Git, Playground with Git here. So I'm replacing all copier template with Playground with Git. If you're using a template, this will be automatic. So here the modules, so is the package, doc test, don't have anything, but sure. Link check, who are the authors, or in this case, who is the author? It's just me. The repo is going to be here in about cicada and then playground with Git. It's actually already online. So this line I'm kind of copy pasting from I think package templates.jl, or maybe something even older than that, I don't remember. So format document.html, pretty URLs. This little trick here will be useful when we build this online. So this is essentially checking if you are on a CI, so GitHub Actions, for instance. By default, this is the website. There's some style. Actually, I don't think I have any style.css here, so I'm going to remove this instead of copying. And the pages that we have, currently we only have one page, which is the index.md, but I'm also going to copy paste another page, which is reference.md. So here in the docs, I have github.com about cicada, playground with Git, and push preview equals true. This, if possible, this is going to give you a preview of your website, but it does depend on who you work with. So I think by default is false. Let's leave it as false then. Don't worry about it too much. So this is the basic version of make.jl, and it is already kind of full. It should work, except that I don't have reference. So actually, let's create a new file here. So just click here, new file, reference.md. And I'm going to go back to copy a template here, reference.md. Save. Same for the index. Is also pretty simple, but just so you can see exactly what you're copying. And index.md. So playground with Git. This is markdown, right? So this is the title and just some content. This is where you're going to put most of the information of your package. Probably something close to the README, or maybe the README will direct to here and you don't have to add a lot to the README. That's a little bit of your choice. But the reference.md actually has some interesting stuff going on. So here, this content, so let's build this and see the result. Things going on. Okay, build has some warnings as usual in life. Let's just ignore the warnings. This is the result. Refreshed, it's now looking like a decent documentation for a pretty small package, but anyway. So the index now has a title and some information that I added. The reference has already some contents of this page. So let's look here. So the contents, so whenever you use triple backticks in Markdown, it means code. So I'm writing some code. But when you do triple backticks and then an @ symbol and then some keyword, this gets parsed by Documenter and so it becomes something else. So this is not normal Markdown. This is Documenter using some of that Markdown backend to do some fancy stuff. So here I'm saying, hey, put the table of contents for this page, reference.md, which is what you get here. Second, index. So inside this title, add an index of the files here. So I believe this is essentially listing all the functions, all the documentation links that I'm adding, the doc strings. And most interesting, this one, autodocs. I have the modules, which is usually only one, playground with Git. Your module normally, it's going to look for all the doc strings and automatically put them here. And that's pretty fun. So if you look here, let's remove this so you can see the difference. Run again. The result, you don't have that index listing the functions. And if you remove the autodocs, then you don't have the, well, you apparently have some error as well. Probably because this is empty. No, there's more to it. Yeah. So let me show the error because this is the important error. So the error that we have here is, hey, there is a doc string in the module that's not included into the docs. So because we have not included that, we have an error essentially saying, hey, you're not adding some documentation in your website. You should, because you have created a doc string for that function. So why is it not in the docs? So it's a pretty good system. So what you can do instead is remove this and then you add a triple docs. And then you can say loan interest later. And now you have the same information, except that now I am explicitly listing the function. So you have some options here. By default, what I like to do is use Autodocs. And then I have all the documentation here, right? So let me just Ctrl Z, that's easier. Then I have all the doc strings of the functions in a place. But if your documentation is kind of large and you want to be a bit more structured, you might want to say, hey, this is a list of all the functions related to root finding, and then you explicitly list the functions like loan interest calculator, and then you create a new section for optimization, and then docs for that. I don't know, JSO suite dot optimize, right? Something like that. So you might want to organize the documentation manually. That's up to you essentially. I'm kind of lazy, and if I forget, it's automatically added. But as you saw, if I do forget, you're gonna have a warning. So it's always kind of safe. Now that we set up the documentation, we can use those docs. So let me just give a quick example. Again, with the loan interest calculator. This can be done in any page. So I'm at index.md. I'm gonna build again and look at home. And then you can see, well, it's here. So see it here, build the result, right? You have to be aware though that you can't normally duplicate the doc string. So if you say, for instance, this is the main documentation, and then I have some other page which has a tutorial. I'm here in source again, new file, tutorial.md, and this is tutorial. Well, this is the tutorials page. So using computing the loan, and then you say we use the function blah, and then this is the function. I have to go in make. I have to say these are the pages. Let me do this. These are the pages, right? Home index.md, reference is reference, and then I have a new page that I'm calling tutorials, and it's a tutorial. Probably should be called tutorials.md. Done. And now if I include again, it will build the tutorial, but it will have an error. And it's saying, hey, there is a duplicate documentation because I already used the docs to create a documentation for loan interest. So it doesn't let me duplicate the documentation. So what can we do? We can say this is not the canonical documentation. So if we include again, it works. This is telling the Documenter.jl system to ignore that this documentation is going to be duplicated. I know I'm using a non-canonical doc string here. Don't worry about it. Let's just check that the website has a tutorials page now, and that you have the loan interest calculator. So before moving to the online part of this video, let's just showcase two other commands which are kind of necessary if you're doing some actual documentation. You will need these commands eventually, which are the most basic one is the ref command. So you can reference things. For instance, check the documentation. We can actually do it here. So this is loan interest calculator, right? So we use the function loan interest calculator, and the doc string here. But normally what you want to do is have a link. So if you don't know, in Markdown links are like this. Name of the link, actual link, right? So let me just show you this. Yeah, this is actual link. Maybe this works. Otherwise, it's going to try to find a file called actual link. Yeah, but it tried with a link check. So yeah, sometimes I want to do some bad stuff and Documenter won't let me, which is good in general, but when I'm trying to do some tutorial or some YouTube video, that's not so good. So actual link is not an actual link, right? So Documenter is trying to tell me, hey, this is not an actual link. So name of the link is here, name of the link is here. If you look at the bottom, you can see that it tries to go to actual link. here is looking for actual link, which doesn't exist. It's not a website. So let's say that I want to link to the loan interest calculator. So I could come here to reference and get this link here, which is kind of a long URL, and then I use it here, right? So I put this part in brackets, which is what I want to show, and then I right click here, copy link address, paste here. Of course, I'm using the local version. So this link is actually wrong because it's looking at my file. That's not what I want to do. Instead, I want it to point to the link when it becomes official, when it's built. Since I don't want to actually go search for it, you can use @ref. And @ref is a magic command by Documenter that automatically links to this thing here. So if you include make, you can go back to the tutorials and you can see that this is now a link. And if you click on that, it's going to the correct page, right? Notice that this is the index page, which is where I put my docs. If I remove it from here, my reference has these auto docs, right? So let's go back to tutorials. The link is still there. If I click on it, now it points to the reference. So auto docs shows the doc string as well, but docs has priority. The other use of ref is to reference titles. So here I have some other tutorial about something more complicated, and then I say make sure to follow the computing the loan @ref tutorial first. So here I might have some issue computing the loan first. If I click on it, it's going to this place. Actually just worked beautifully, so don't worry about the issue. Computing the loan is the same name as this one, right? So @ref just works. So if I make a mistake like loan and then I try to include, it's going to have an error. So let's say that so first things, recap. If you use @ref and the name is correct, is identical, it just works. It links either to the documentation, to the doc string, or to the title automatically. Of course, in this case, we don't have anything interesting going on. Maybe I could say reference instead. And when I click here, tutorials. Now I have reference here. If I click on reference, it goes to the correct page. Even if it's another page, doesn't matter. If there is a unique title, then it's going to find that title and it's going to go there. So why am I saying all this? Well, you could have duplicate headers, which you probably shouldn't, at least not in the same document. That's a bad markdown practice anyway. But also the naming could change. Maybe you're not sure that this is what you want to write, or maybe you want to say something else like, please follow the basic tutorial first. So now it's going to look for something called basic, and that doesn't exist. So what you can do is add an ID to this computing the loan. So how? You just treat it like a link, but then the URL, instead of being an actual URL, you just add @ID and then you give it some name like computing loan. Here in the ref, you just say ref computing loan. Save, include make. Now this works. Refresh. Now this say basic, but it's pointed to computing the loan. The name of these, how is it called? This tag, I forgot the HTML name, but the name that is using on the HTML is computing loan. So maybe you want to use this for some other HTML stuff. Anyway, but this is the ID that's being added to this header, right? So that's the other reason that's the other situation where you might want to have a named ref. Finally, the most important command for documentation, maybe I should have told this first, but I'm improvising, is the example. So you actually want to add an example on your code. So let's say using playground with Git, and then you say loan interest calculator, save, include, and check the result. And this is the result. It doesn't make sense to you, of course, because this is something of the playground, but this is the output of the function loan interest calculator. So this is actually running the Julia code and giving me the result. That means that I can do some fancy stuff, and then I can print. So you can print things to show here. So that example is useful when you're building tutorials, of course, for documentation, and you might want to have separate tutorials or tutorials that are kind of long. You may have something like 20 lines of code and you don't want to add them all in a single example, so you can add names to these examples. So for instance, I'm going to say at example x equals 1 here. If I say at example x plus 1, this should not work, and you can see it's a failure. But if I say my example 1 here, both of them, you can check again, and x equals 1 works, returns 1, and x plus 1 works, returns 2, and you can do some fancy stuff. You might also want to hide some things, like I'm using playground with Git. Maybe I'm doing this a lot, and so I can hide. And then when you see the result, it's beautiful. It's completely edited out. This is the basic of what you need to build your documentation, your tutorials, everything. Now let's do these things. Let's do something to make this documentation be available online so people can actually see the documentation. So what we're going to do is automatically build the documentation whenever we push. And as I mentioned before, if you're using a template, this is probably already available on the template. Some like to put this alongside the testing. You have only a ci.yml, and inside the CI, you're going to have the testing, maybe the linting in this case. What I'm doing with Copier template at the moment is having it separate. So here I have a GitHub workflow for the docs that is completely separate. It's a bit more complicated, so I'm copying this. I'm going to create a new file here called Docs.yml. And here in this file, I want to search and replace. Thank you. And let's briefly explain what's going on here. So this is a docs flow. So a workflow is something that runs automatically under some conditions on GitHub. Which conditions? Whenever I push to the branch called main, these paths. So I'm going to simplify this so we don't worry about this. Or the tags. So if I push to main, or if I push a tag, so if I have a new release, or if I have a pull request to main, so if I open or it's updated, or I close and open again, this workflow will run. What are the jobs? In this case, only one. Something called docs, documentation on Ubuntu. Every step here, every dash is a bullet point. So first, clone the repository. Second, install Julia. Third, run Julia on the folder docs. Install Documenter and whatever else I install on my project .toml. Run doc test. Let's not worry about it, but essentially you can add some basic tests on your documentation, on your doc strings, and those tests will run here. But let's focus here on this, which is actually running the main. And that's it. You have some environment variables because we are running the deploy command inside the make. And to deploy, that actually means pushing the content of the build folder into the GH pages. So it's actually going to be something. We always have a GitHub token set up. So this is going to be fine for our own pushes to main. But we're going to have to set up a Documenter key later for the tags. So let's add this and see what happens. So just a reminder, this is inside GitHub Workflow Docs. I'm back in Git. Git status, I have all the docs. By the way, if I add those here, yeah, I have already done this on my Git ignore. You should add docs build and docs manifest to the ignore. You don't want to add those things to your Git. Yeah, back to Git. So I can add docs and I can add this new workflow. Here are the new files, and I'm gonna create a new commit, add docs. I am pushing directly to main, so we can just go online and check it out. Where is it? Here. So if I check the actions, so these are the actions. So the CI is failing, but we can ignore that. So one thing that you might have to do before pushing and running your action, I don't actually remember if I have to do this. You have to go to action general, and then down here you have the workflow permissions of GitHub token, and you have to set up to read and write permissions, and you don't actually need this, I think, for this action. I don't actually remember if you need this, but if your build fails with some permission, that might be the reason. And we're back. So this is the result of our execution. You can check here what to expect. So this is exactly what you have on your computer, I think up to here. And here you have the fun stuff, deployment. So when you actually say, hey, deploy this, it's going to make some checks to see if it can deploy, and you hope to see all of them passing. So the bad one might be this one. GitHub token exists and is now empty. So let's look at this. Let's look at this. So if you check your branches, GH pages, this is the website, index.html, and dev is where the development version of your website is. Again, this is not a tag, this is not a release, so this is the development version. The dev is here. Go to settings, go to pages, and now you have this build and deployment. Here you want to say the source is deployed from a branch, and the branch is GH, the root, save. This is refreshing. Now that is refreshing, actions, pages build deployment is running. This should take a few seconds, a minute at most, and the page will be online. While this runs, we're gonna go back to settings, we're gonna go back to pages, and we can wait here. After a minute, you can refresh. And this is the result. I just refreshed. Your site is live at this place. So my abelsiqueira.com is a GitHub custom domain website. So it looks like abelsiqueira.com/whatever, but in your case, it would be like GitHub username.github.io/this thing here. You can visit the website and see the documentation. The documentation is here. Tutorials. This all worked. This all ran on GitHub. This is not my local version. This is building online automatically. That's pretty much it. This should be enough. And depending on what you do, like if you follow the copier template, you will have this by default. It will automatically work. And the README on copier template has the extra information that you need to follow. And you have to do some extra things to make your website build for tags. There are some interaction between some actions, and because of the way that GitHub tries to protect your repository from people, for instance, trying to mine Bitcoin or whatever, the GitHub token has some limitations. And so let's do this extra stuff. So what we're going to do now is look into copiertemplate.jl for the actual commands that we want to run. These commands are kind of easy, but yeah, the first time that you want to follow them, they look really scary. And the thing that we want to run right now is this step 4 on the Documenter usage. So we're going to add these Documenter tools on a temporary environment. So activate temp. Now we add Documenter tools. Take your time, Documenter tools. Yeah, don't worry, not going anywhere. I could have cut this part from the video, but I guess I'm not cutting it. Give you time to breathe. Maybe drink some water. Remember to drink water, it's important. And now we can go back to the Julia repo, say using Documenter tools. And it's going to precompile, of course. And then you're going to say Documenter tools.gen keys user. So who's the user? If this package is from organization, this should be the organization, not your username from GitHub. This is essentially the package rel user/repo. And what's the repo name? Well, playground with git.jl. Don't forget the .jl. And this is going to generate this super fun stuff. Yeah, okay. So run again. This is going to generate the super fun stuff. If you move the terminal, it will disappear apparently. And all the information is here, although it's kind of dense. It's easy to get lost here. So add the key below as a new deploy key on GitHub. So here you have the link. So if I control click here, it's going to open it. So here it is, the deploy key. So add deploy key. So essentially you just click on all of this. So it might be a bit tricky if you copy an extra space. That's not going to be nice. So you can triple click if you want, like anywhere on this line, triple click. Then you can Control Shift C, right? So right clicking will not work. So triple click, Control Shift C, come here, paste. So you don't need to add a title because it's going to be inferred, and allow write access. So just paste this SSH key, add key. It's going to need some authentication. So here I just added this SSH key. Now add a secure repository secret named Documenter key. Again, there is a link. Control click on that. Here, repository secret is not an environment secret. It's not a variable. It's repository secret new. And then it needs this name, Documenter key. So Control Shift C. And here you can paste. And here again, triple click. Or can you just double click? Just double click. Control Shift C. Paste. And then this will add a secret key. So when do you need this? Well, you need this when you have a tag bot enabled. If you don't have a tag bot, you definitely should look into it. Tag bot will essentially help you when you're registering your package, right? I hope you have seen this in other videos. If you want to register your package, you can just say @JuliaRegistrator register in a comment, and then it will automatically trigger some things. After those things are done, so essentially it's going to do something on the Julia registry side. After that is merged, tagbot will run. So this workflow here will run on your repo, creating some comments on an issue that will make the release automatically appear. The problem is that this tagbot cannot trigger the docs because it is forbidden by GitHub rules. So what we are doing essentially is we are creating a Documenter key, giving power to tagbot to bypass GitHub security, which is a bit scary, but if you don't, for instance, show all the world your Documenter key, then it should be fine. Of course, what we're going to do is delete this key, because we're not going to use this secret at all, but you should have them and not show anybody. And if you have the tagbot enabled and you create a new release, then the documentation will simply build. So here's an example by Copier template itself. So I'm looking at the actions here, the tagbot action. So this also can be triggered manually, but don't worry about it. One of those, so how this works, don't worry about it. But one of those things triggered tagbot, and tagbot ran. And when tagbot ran, it triggered the docs for the version. So here you can see version 0.25 and not just main. 0.25 was the tag that triggered the documentation build. And because of that, if you look at GH pages or copier template, you can see v0.25 here. There is a folder for that specific version. So this is how it looks like, right? A more complete GH pages. The dev that we showed before, for each tag, you're gonna have a folder, and you have previews as well. So if you have push preview enable, you can see pull requests as long as they have the necessary permissions, which sometimes they don't. And because of all of this, you can check the documentation here, the docs, stable or dev. If you click on doc stable, it's going to look to the latest tagged version, which is v0.25, which is exactly what we wanted. So it's working as expected. We do need that documenter key, so be aware that if you forget that, you will create new releases, you will create new versions of your package, you will receive no error, no warning anywhere that you don't have the tagged documentation. What's going to happen is you won't have the documentation on your branch. So these things here will not be visible, they will not be there. So if, for instance, you looked at your documentation online and you only have the dev version, or you're like, there are many tags that are missing, that's probably because of your documenter key having been, I don't know, deleted, or there is some error in there, or there's something missing. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to check that, because the GitHub token is enough if you don't use tagbot, the tagbot. You're gonna have to debug a little bit. But don't worry, if you fix that, for instance, let's say that, oh my god, I forgot documenter key, add documenter key, go to the actions as fast as possible, right? This should not be like commits later. Check tagbot, run workflow, and then you have this look back. So it's going to look for, I think it looks for releases. I'm not sure what it looks for, but it's going to look for whatever it looks for, and then it's going to trigger the tag build, if possible. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. It is a bit dense because I tried to put everything related to Documenter.jl here. Maybe I missed something. I mean, of course I missed a lot of things because Documenter.jl is kind of big, but I wanted to focus on the main features from beginning to end. So if you have a package that doesn't have documentation yet, or the documentation is not online, or documentation is not building properly, you should have all the necessary tooling to make that work now. So I hope that was useful for you. If so, please let me know. Like and subscribe, of course, and also leave a comment telling me what you thought about it. And thanks a lot for watching. I'm really glad that I have some viewers in this channel that are asking for this content. So I made it especially for a request that I had. So I hope this is helpful. And well, let me know if you need other things, all of you viewers. And thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.